Shalom. It is ironic that we are in this park today, surrounded by huge symbols of colonisation and dispossession, not least among them the statue of Queen Victoria behind us. In this year, where we as a people celebrate 150 years as a state, it is good for us to pause and remember the people we dispossessed. As a people, we have never acknowledged their sovereignty of this land. Instead, we declared this land terra nullius. Similarities of this are happening today in Palestine. We gather today to say as a people that what is happening this very day in Palestine is wrong, and that peoples throughout the world condemn the actions of Israel. Last Sunday, just briefly, a priest in the Church of Gaza had this to say in his homily: "What you see on television cannot be compared to what is happening." The word love is choking in my throat. We are living like animals in Gaza. We cry and nobody hears us. I'm asking God for mercy and pray that the light of God continues to shine in Gaza. Peace can only come through justice, not war. And so he prayed, heal our wounds, strengthen our steps, open our hearts and minds to the loving kindness of the heart of our God, who is one and who invites us to be one, like the dawn from on high. Free, free Palestine.
Our next speaker is Margot Salon. She's a member of the Jewish community here. She also is part of a group. Please. She's also part of a group called the Palestinian and Jewish Unity for Justice and Peace. It's very brave of her to come here and talk today. Obviously, there's a lot of people in her community that would not be happy about this. But please. Thank you. And she's also written a research, a Master of Philosophy on the topic of silencing dissent in the Jewish community in Australia. So once again, a round of applause for Margot, please.
As you've heard, my name is Margot Salon. I'm very proud of my name. I'm really proud of my name. It does mean peace. I'm a Jewish peace activist, or as is known in the mainstream community, a troublemaker. I'm part of a small select group of Australian troublemakers in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Canberra. I can safely say that we all categorically condemn Israel's long and ongoing brutal treatment of the Palestinian people. And we are appalled and outraged by this latest criminal attack on the innocent people of Gaza. I'd like to say my position in the Hamas justification that's used. The Hamas rocket rationale, I call it. I personally believe that an illegally occupied people have the right to resist. There are numerous United Nations resolutions to support this view. This legal resistance will inevitably be expressed in different ways. Some will be moderate and others more extreme. That's my position on that very vexed question that keeps coming at me from all sorts of quarters. I feel after 60 years of occupation and dispossession, with all the humiliation and all the horrors that go with that, extreme measures are to be expected when an economic blockade has been crippling a population for years. I want you to know that there are many Jews worldwide who think like I do and loudly protest what is being perpetrated in our name. I'm sure that Jewish troublemakers, which I love to say, are a growing group in many countries of the diaspora and, of course, in Israel itself. I suspect that this Gaza outrage will recruit many more disgusted Jews to speak out. I'm quite sure of that. Since this crisis started, I've been besieged with emails from many of these groups. To name a few: Jews Who Speak Out in Canada, Gush Shalom in Israel, Independent Australian Jewish Voices, Independent British Jewish Voices, Coalition of Women for a Just Peace in Israel, and the other Israel, in Israel. In Israel itself, there have been several protest rallies. I don't know whether people know about this. There was a Women Against War demo on the 2nd of January where their placards were "Remove the siege, stop the war." That was in Haifa. And of course the big one on the 3rd of January, arranged by Gush Shalom along with a whole lot of other peace organisations, and that was in Tel Aviv on the 3rd. 10,000 Israelis attended that. What I like about that is that there was a small breakaway group that went to an airfield and tried to stop the planes taking off for bombing. Of course they were arrested, but what a wonderful try. Some of the placards that were used then at that particular demonstration or rally is my favourite. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies. And another one, a full truce and lift the siege of Gaza. Conducting war in the world's most thickly populated area condemns soldiers to become war criminals. Stop the killing, stop the siege, stop the occupation. I'm sure we can all relate to that, Jews and Palestinians alike. Look, I would like, and I hope I have time, to read out the words of a long-time peace activist in Israel who started Gush Shalom. He's 85 years old now. He's a former parliamentarian. His name is Uri Avneri. I'd like to read it to you because it's really very good. Okay, might be better. Is that okay? You can all hear? Oh, good. They tell us we are traitors. They tell us we are destroyers of Israel. They tell us we are criminals. But we tell them the criminals are those who started this criminal and unnecessary war. An unnecessary war because it was possible to stop Qasem by the government stopping the blockade on the 1.5 million inhabitants of Gaza. A criminal war because on top of everything else, it is openly and shamelessly part of Ehud Barak and Tzipi Livni's election campaign. I accuse Ehud Barak of exploiting the IDF soldiers in order to get more Knesset seats. I accuse Tzipi Livni of advocating mutual slaughter to become Prime Minister. I accuse Ehud Olmert of trying to cover up rotten corruption with a disastrous war. I call upon them from this tribune on behalf of this courageous and decent audience. Stop the war at once. Stop the shedding of blood of our soldiers and civilians for nothing. Stop shedding blood on the inhabitants of Gaza. The ground invasion will cause an additional disaster, a mutual massacre and even more terrible war crimes. At the end of this war, no general will be able to set foot on European soil without fear of being arrested for war crimes. We are told that there is no alternative. Not true. A ceasefire is possible even now. Yes, this very minute, if we agree to lift the murderous siege to allow the Gaza people to live in dignity, if we talk to Hamas. I wish to address the people of the south, the people of Sderot, Ashdod and Beersheba. We know your anguish, even though we don't live with you. We know well, but we also know that this war will not change your situation. The politicians exploit you. The politicians conduct the war on your back. You know that. I call upon Olmert, Barak and Livni. Do not send the soldiers into the Strip. That must have been before he did. All three of you will be accused of war crimes. All three of you will pay the price. The masses in Israel, saluting you now, will punish you tomorrow. That happened in the Second Lebanon War. That will happen again this time. And you who are standing here, women and men, young and old, Jews and Arabs, you who have protested against this horrible war, from the first day, from the first minute, isolate and curse, you are the real heroes. You can be proud, very proud, because you stand in the middle of a hurricane of hysteria and ignorance and are not swept away by it. You are retaining